All right, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking Microsoft stock. Now, Microsoft has seen a massive run up in the past few days, and today it had earnings. Earnings were incredibly bullish, and we're seeing a massive push up on the after hours, about 3 to 4% right now. But the real question is, can the stock keep maintaining this? And it has some pretty negative news behind it. I think the growth might slow down, and we're gonna get exactly into why. But before we cover this content, I need you to do one thing and one thing only: hit the sub button down below, leave a thumbs up, and make sure you have the notifications turned on. I'm posting videos every single day at 8 a.m. and then 11 a.m. Central. Let's get to it. Before we get into the content, I want to actually cover this video really quick. We have an analyst from CNBC going over the stock and how they actually beat earnings and kind of some growth expectations over the next few weeks.
Lee Shower joins the conversation as well, Jay. Your top line thoughts on Microsoft's beat, a 5% move after hours to a new high.
We've seen now from Microsoft what we've seen many times before, which is a beat in many respects. Each of their three segments beat us in terms of revenue and operating income. We've seen that before. We've seen it now again for the second quarter, and by quite a good margin in many respects. The Azure business beat our growth estimate by 8 points. That's over $300 million of upside right there. Gaming upside, which we would have expected given the new releases, but other commercial parts of the business also strong in terms of bookings and revenue. So Microsoft's machine continues to execute very, very well.
Jay, not trying to pick holes in clearly an outstanding set of numbers. What about the personal computing segment? A big beat there on the revenue line. Do you think that's more one-off in nature or less repeatable in nature given purchases of things like laptops during the pandemic?
Well, we would have expected, based on the Intel news earlier this month and industry data, that PC shipments were very strong in the fourth quarter, that it was highly likely that the Windows OEM business was going to outperform, and that's exactly what happened. But the long-term trend for PCs, I think, has not fundamentally changed in the long run. Obviously, there's strong demand right now to meet current well-known needs. But we are set up for a somewhat more difficult December quarter next year. But in the meantime, we'll take the upside. It's a high-margin business, and it undoubtedly added as well to the bottom line.
Satya Nadella, Mike, in the release, as Wilfred noted earlier, called it the dawn of a second wave of digital transformation, which does not sound fleeting. But if you think about, some of the spots that are working, not just cloud, Teams, of course, the video game consoles. I mean, there is a lot of a work from home, stay at home boost here to the business. Question is, does that have staying power?
Sure. Go ahead, Jay.
Sorry, that's true. The home market has certainly been strong in terms of the replacement cycle and expansion cycle for PCs. But the digital transformation conversation that we hear so much about really has more to do with commercial and industrial kinds of applications and demand in manufacturing, retail, government, financial services, and the like. That's where we see the big momentum in terms of the digital transformation. The cloud business with Azure is a very visible part of that. And one of the things I've been saying for years is that a distinctive part of Microsoft's strategy is, in fact, their focus on multiple end markets that are digitally transforming, like manufacturing, life sciences, and the like. That's a big part of the story here.
We're just going to cover this article really quickly, kind of go over a few key points that he went over. So here are the actual earnings. We had an EPS score of $2.03 versus the 1.64 expectations. That's a pretty major beat. Revenue was $43 billion with $40 million expected. Another pretty decent beat, almost 10% there. Microsoft's revenue increased by 17% on an annualized basis, up from 12% growth in the prior quarter. Another great beat. So overall, it's beating across the board. On everything, it's overall beating. And this is something I really want to look at, is the overall growth. So we can look at quarter two. This is what really matters right here. This is where we're sitting at. Two things I really want to discuss. One is going to be the Xbox content and services. This I expect to decrease pretty severely next quarter. If you don't know, they actually increased the prices for Xbox Live. It went up from, I believe, $60 a year to $60 per 6 months. So almost doubling the overall price. Product Azure, I assume it will keep rising. It's at 50% right now. I do think even as we're going back to works and jobs are going back to normal, I think it will still growing just because the brand is really developing and proving to be something special. The Office 365 commercial, I think that will go down. Reason being, I think businesses will retract some of their subscriptions for the at-home people because they'll be going back to work now. For upper level management, they'll probably keep those so they can work from home as well. I think productivity from home is actually pretty good, all things considered. So I think they're going to want to keep that. Windows OEM, which is kind of their actual products like computers and stuff like that, this will most likely drop as well. We saw a pretty nice spike up. If you actually see, we were negative the quarter before that, 0% in quarter 3 of last year, and kind of pretty stagnant before that. I assume this will actually end up dropping pretty severely, just because I don't think we're going to be needing that many systems in the coming months. All the purchases are going to be made now, upgrades and stuff like that. I think that's already being done, so we'll see. If anything, that's the biggest question mark. And like I said, excluding the after hours move, Microsoft shares are up 5% since the start of 2021, while S&P 500 index is up 3%. And then so on the after hours, we're up another 3.5%. I could see us hitting 250 going into tomorrow, so add another 5% on top of that. So about 8% total, over the day coming into tomorrow. The real question is, what's my outlook on the stock and where do I see it going? Before we get to the charts, I kind of want to answer this question. I do think we have some downside coming over the next month or two. I think we're going to kind of start peaking near the end of January, the next 5-6 days, maybe in the beginning of February. But I do think there is downside coming. We're also seeing indexes run up pretty massively, which are kind of setting up for a nice retracement overall on all FANG stocks. And then I know Microsoft isn't in the FANG stocks, but it's a pretty big large cap stock. So I think it will be affected pretty major with the rest of the FANG. So once we get above 250, that territory is going to be pretty dangerous. If you're a long-term investor, I'm not saying get out of the stock or anything like that. I mean, it's overall a pretty safe company just because I see them growing, and they're really establishing their brand more than ever right now with cloud-based services, and with working from home. That's where they're really developing and building trust right now. So that's really, really big for reserving and consuming more and more customers and bringing them back. So that's huge, especially with Apple having such a dominance for most laptops and stuff. I think where I do see us having negative side effects is with any type of gaming. I see us, that's where the negatives kind of coming from. The Xbox system is lackluster compared to the PS5. The subscription model kind of sucks compared to PlayStation's. And the only real positive I see growing continuously is going to be Azure, which is their cloud-based computing software. It's doing pretty good and showing a lot of promise. But overall, on the earnings, we saw amazing numbers across the board for Microsoft. I think they're just due for a pullback, and it's going to be pretty nice. Maybe like to 225 down to 200 total. That's a pretty steep move down, about a 20% move down to 200 flat. So keep that on your radar. Okay, so this is the daily chart. As you can see, we're on a clear uptrend, really making some moves up. So I do want to highlight this trend that we have kind of forming right now. I do think it's possible to get a 250 push, and as you look at the chart, we could obviously go higher to still touch that trend line. But I do see some downside coming. We're going to open up at this red line about 240. Also, right now, the indexes look pretty promising. We're at 1356 on the Nasdaq. SPX is going to open up pretty strong. I believe the Nike's looking well. Dow was actually down quite a bit on the after hours, but I think that'll start popping back up. Of course, you want to take a really quick look at the OBV. As you see, we are getting some nice volume from that last high, breaking clearly out of it. So I do see more legs being made. That's what has me assuming we're going to see a push to the 250, 255 range. Like I said, though, the trend line is a lot higher than this, so we could see a 267, 270 push over the next 3-4 days. But if we don't get a push pretty quick, I do assume the volumes will start dropping off, and I do kind of suspect a retracement overall on Microsoft. The $200 range is not that far, and if we look, it's actually in the relative lows, and an obvious place where we're getting a lot of consolidation down here. You can just see that consolidation and where we're getting those touches. So that'd be a really, really strong support. 195 to 200 would be the overall buy zone for this stock, in my opinion. And if you want to see what it would look like going into tomorrow, we are clearly going to get a bump up this level. Want to see a retest and then another leg. But this is going to be like a lower time frame, so I wouldn't see us going out this much into March, obviously. So if we go, let's go down to the 15-minute chart. What I expect going to tomorrow, we're obviously gapping up. I want to see a retest and then a push up to this 262, maybe 260 level. From there, I want to see us get pushed immediately back down pretty quick underneath that support. Now, will I be opening any puts or shorting the stock at all? Not right now. One, I want to see some imminent downside on the Nasdaq and the indexes before I start placing puts on anything. Two, I do want to see a push back below this resistance level of 240 and then a retest. This is what we'll look to enter. We want to buy the retest right there. So that's where we want to short the stock to aim for that 220 push. That's still a really great profit margin, almost 20% right there, about 18% give or take from there, from 240 down to 200. Overall, though, I do not want to touch this going into tomorrow. I think we have a lot of volume making higher highs, flagging down, getting breakouts up. I think we're going to push maybe past this all-time high right here on the OBV. As you see that volume getting kicked in, if we get above that level, it's looking very, very bullish for that $260, $270 push. You want to see the volume die down, and you want to kind of see that float drop a little bit more and get some more shorts in there. In review, what I'm expecting in the short-term time frame, the next 4 or 5 days, is a push up to the 260 to 265 level. From there, I want to see a quick rejection of that level. I don't see us pushing much higher than that. That'd still be a massive move from 240, almost another 10% move from where we're at. It's definitely possible. The earnings that they received, if you go and look at that earnings report, I mean, it's pretty incredible. They killed it across all boards. Has me really bullish for Apple and other companies. Because if Microsoft did that well, Apple has to absolutely shred. Overall, in the short term, Microsoft does look pretty bullish. From that 265 level, I want to say a push down below 240. If we hold below 240, then we open up some puts and target that $200 range. Any comments regarding this video, make sure you comment down below and I will answer for the first 24 hours. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn the notifications on because I'm posting videos every single day. Have a good one, guys. Namaste.